All right, as for the ingredients for this bird suet, we have 1.5 cup. That's about it. I'm gonna throw them in the freezer for an hour or two. Gotta make sure I show you how I get some suet in that. All right, so this is called a spade bit or a wood boring bit. This size I'm using is 1 inch. It's only because my 1.25 inch broke. But I'm gonna drill some holes in this log. This branch here, I just found some scrap that somebody had dumped on the side of the road. And I have some other branches that have a little more branching to them. But I already have those drilled. I can show you when I'm sticking those in the ground. I wanted to show you what I do as far as drilling the hole though. I don't go all the way through. I only go in about 1 inch, and that's a perfect spot for me to stick the suet that I'll show you how to make. Woodpeckers love it, the juncos, however you want to say it. Those birds love it as well, the dark-eyed juncos. And there's some other birds that occasionally go after it as a special treat. In the winter, suet has the fat in it and a lot of the protein that they need in order to survive the winter. So this is something fun I like doing. This one in particular has kind of a smoother bark, so I'm hoping that the woodpeckers will be able to do it and not the other birds, because there are days where with all the other birds eating on it, the suet's gone in no time. So I'm hoping that at least this one will be for the northern flicker woodpecker. That's my favorite bird. That's the bird that got me into really want to learn more about birds and offer food and take care of the birds. I just pick spots at random and drill the hole. Not knowing what kind of wood this was, because since it was on the side of the road and I just can't tell, I can't quite figure out what it is. Apparently it's really hard. Took a lot to drill into that, more than I expected. I'm gonna switch batteries to one that has a little more gusto on it. Might be wondering why I'm doing this in the garage and making such a big mess. I'm wondering the same thing. Put one right above that, act like a little perch. Get a few more lower down, and I think that's good for this log. I think I need something a little bit higher up too. One of my logs has a big split that goes a good length down it, and I shove some suet in there, especially the little crumbs that happen as I'm forming the suet balls. I think start with that many holes. I can always add more if it seems to run out too quick. And we'll see. I don't even know if they like this log, if they'll grab onto it or not. But we'll see. We'll go from there. All of those wood shavings are going to be a perfect carbon source for my compost bin, so I'm going to go throw them in there instead of just tossing them in the trash. All right, as for the ingredients for this bird suet, we have 1.5 cups shortening next to a 3/4 cup peanut butter, and I have that melted on the stove so it's easier to mix with the other ingredients. I have 2.5 cups wild bird seed, 1 cup dried mealworms, 1 cup of instant oats, and 1/2 cup of cornmeal. I'm going to add all the dry ingredients into a mixing bowl. And I'm gonna pour the melted nut butter and the shortening. You see I got the chunky peanut butter for this one. And pour it into here. Now I'm gonna mix that all together. These ingredient measurements can be a little bit manipulated. It's not like a recipe for baking or anything. You don't need to be super accurate. You don't want to vary too far. Otherwise you might have too much liquid or not enough liquid. But since that was melted, it was still pretty hot. I'm gonna mix this just enough to make it combined. Then I'm gonna let it sit for about a half an hour to an hour, because right now I can't really form it into like cookie dough type balls. I'm gonna let it cool down to where I can form it and that it'll hold its shape. All right, so things have cooled down enough that I can now form them into little cookie dough balls. I use this scooper. Oh, it's falling apart just a little bit. And I stack as many as I can on here. Then I stick them into the freezer, let them get completely hard, and then I pile them all into a zip top bag. Okay, now I'm going to go back through and help form some of them that got a little chewed up from the sweeper inside that scoop. Just try to make them shaped into little balls. That's about it. I'm going to throw them in the freezer for an hour or two. So I'm going to do it out here a little ways. The ground's a little frozen now. Pretty soon that'll be frozen solid in there. It's not going to go anywhere. There's one. All right, let's get this whole board out for the second branch. All right, that should be it. So it's turned out to be a little bit breezy. Hopefully the camera doesn't blow over. Hopefully there's not too much wind in the microphone, but now it's time to fill some of the holes that I'd bored out with some of the suet that we made. So I just take a suet ball, I shove it in there. There's some that don't need a full ball, so I take the leftover what squished out, find another hole for that. I don't have much of a squirrel problem here, which is good. Otherwise, I think this would all disappear to a squirrel pretty quickly. Make sure I get some higher up and on this other side. Make sure I get my hands all covered in suet. Pretty simple, pretty fun. I'll show you some pictures of the birds I've seen on there. The wind's trying to blow the camera over. I really don't want that to happen. I'm right next to a 6-foot drop on my tier. So I'll probably not take any more chances and be done with recording. As I was picking up, I realized I didn't feel right about not showing you the log that we had drilled on the video, so got to make sure I show you how I get some suet in that. Nothing different, but it is the log that we drilled together, so to speak. Has a little bit of a crack right here. I'm going to force some of the suet down in that crack. I think I'm going to stop at that. And hopefully we'll get some pictures of some birds I can show you. I was hoping it would just be woodpeckers that could access the suet on that, but apparently the pigeons can do it just fine.